The rain was falling hard that night in Dallas, Texas. The parking lot outside the apartment building was nearly empty, except for one small silver sedan and a woman clutching her belly. That woman was Hannah Mitchell, 7 months pregnant, exhausted after another long day. She thought she was heading home to rest, but she was walking straight into a nightmare. The sedan's engine roared louder. Behind the wheel sat Michael Carter, Hannah's husband. His eyes were cold, his grip on the steering wheel tight. Instead of stopping to let his wife walk past safely, Michael pressed his foot on the gas and the car jerked backward toward her. The screech of tires echoed through the rain. Hannah froze. For a split second, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This was her husband, the man she had sacrificed for, the father of her child. Yet the headlights glared like the eyes of a predator. She stumbled backward, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other reaching out as if she could somehow push the danger away. "Michael, stop!" she cried out, her voice breaking through the storm. But the car kept moving, inch by inch, closer and closer, until the bumper nearly brushed against her knees. The fear in her eyes mixed with confusion. Was this really happening? Was Michael trying to hurt her, or worse, the child she carried? Suddenly, her foot slipped on the wet pavement. She fell sideways, landing hard on the ground. The car lurched forward another half-yard, its tires splashing water onto her face. Hannah gasped, struggling to get up, her body trembling. And then, in that very moment, salvation came from the most unexpected place. A loud honk pierced the air, followed by the screech of massive brakes. A large delivery truck came skidding into the lot, barely managing to stop in time. The edge of the truck clipped Michael's sedan, spinning it slightly and forcing it to a halt. The sudden impact knocked Hannah off balance again, and she fell onto the curb, her phone slipping from her hand. Voices shouted from inside the truck. A man's voice yelled, "Ma'am, are you all right?" But Hannah couldn't answer. The world blurred before her eyes. Pain shot through her side. She tried to breathe, tried to hold on to consciousness, but everything went dark. Before passing out completely, she caught one final glimpse. Michael stepping out of the car, his face pale, his jaw clenched. Not with concern, but with anger that his plan had been interrupted. The rain continued to pour down, washing over Hannah's still body, while the man from the truck rushed toward her. Her phone lay in a puddle. The screen cracked, the last call she had tried to make still unfinished. And somewhere in her fading mind, one thought echoed louder than the storm. If Michael truly wanted her gone, then this was only the beginning. What Hannah didn't know was that this single night would expose a web of betrayal, violence, and secrets that would change her life forever. Long before that stormy night in Dallas, Hannah Mitchell had been a woman full of hope. At only 28 years old, she had already carried more weight on her shoulders than most people faced in a lifetime. She grew up in a modest home, the daughter of Robert and Linda Mitchell, who taught her to value honesty, sacrifice, and love. Her parents never had much money, but they had dignity, and they raised Hannah to believe in family above all else. Hannah followed that belief when she met Michael Carter. He was charming back then, funny, confident, and ambitious. To a young woman like Hannah, he seemed like a man with a future. She fell in love quickly, believing he was someone who would cherish her. Her parents warned her that charm without character was dangerous, but Hannah's heart was louder than their wisdom. The early days of their marriage were not terrible. Hannah worked long shifts at a local cafe, pouring coffee for strangers and saving every tip she earned. Michael, meanwhile, jumped from one sales job to another. He promised that one day he would make it big, that she just needed to trust him. And she did. She trusted so completely that when she became pregnant with their first child, little Anna, she gave up her own dreams to keep the family together. But slowly, the cracks began to show. Michael stayed out late, often claiming he was meeting clients. Bills piled up while his excuses grew thinner. When Hannah asked questions, his temper flared. The man who once held her hand now slammed doors and raised his voice. She told herself it was stress, that it would pass. But then the stress turned into shouting, and shouting turned into bruises she tried to hide. Still, Hannah endured. She endured for Anna. She endured for the unborn child now growing inside her. She believed that if she could hold on long enough, Michael would change. After all, Hadn't she given everything? Her youth, her savings, her loyalty? Surely he would remember the woman who stood by him when he had nothing. But Michael remembered something else, his hunger for more. More money, more control, more of a life he thought he deserved, but refused to work for. That hunger led him into gambling, lies, and eventually into the arms of Sophie Lane, a younger woman who fed his ego while poisoning his heart. And so Hannah's world, once built on sacrifice and faith, became a prison. She was a wife in name, but not in love. She was a mother in strength, but often alone in duty. And now, 7 months pregnant, she was nothing more to Michael than an obstacle standing in the way of his plans. As Hannah sat on the edge of her bed one quiet evening, Anna asleep beside her, she pressed her hand to her swollen belly and whispered, "Don't worry, baby. Mama will protect you." Tears slid down her cheeks as she spoke, a promise to her unborn child. But what Hannah didn't realize was that Michael had already decided how to remove her from his life, and his next move would push her closer to death than she had ever imagined. The sound of beeping machines filled the sterile white room. When Hannah Mitchell opened her eyes, she was blinded by the harsh hospital lights. Her body ached, her ribs felt sore, and her hand instinctively clutched her swollen belly. Panic surged through her chest. "The baby." Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. A calm but firm voice answered, "Your baby still has a heartbeat. You're very lucky, Hannah." Standing beside her bed was Dr. Grace Howard, a seasoned obstetrician with kind eyes but a strict tone. "But you suffered a heavy fall and abdominal trauma. We'll need to monitor both you and the baby closely for the next 72 hours. Relief washed over Hannah for a moment, but it was quickly replaced by fear. Because standing at the foot of her bed, pretending to look concerned, was Michael Carter. He leaned closer, his fake worry painted across his face. "Honey, thank God you're okay. That accident, it was just horrible." "I don't know how it happened." Hannah's eyes widened. Accident? She remembered clearly. She remembered the headlights, the car pushing closer, his cold expression behind the wheel. It hadn't been an accident. He had tried to kill her. Dr. Howard placed a reassuring hand on Hannah's arm. "You need to rest. Stress is dangerous for the baby." She glanced at Michael, her eyes narrowing slightly as if sensing tension. "Short visits only, please." As soon as the doctor stepped out, Michael pulled up a chair and leaned close to Hannah's ear. His voice dropped low, sharp as a knife. "Don't you dare say a word about what you think you saw. You hear me? If you ruin this for me, you'll regret it." Hannah's heart pounded. Her hand tightened on the bedsheet, but she kept her lips pressed together. Moments later, the door creaked open. A tall man with a rugged face stepped inside. David Miller, the truck driver who had stopped the accident from becoming fatal, had come to check on her. "Ma'am, I just wanted to see if you're all right. I was the one driving the truck." Michael's expression darkened instantly. "She's fine. You don't need to be here." But Hannah whispered, "Wait." Her eyes met David's, silently begging him not to leave. David hesitated, then nodded. "My dashcam recorded everything that happened. I already gave it to the police." The words hit the air like a thunderclap. Michael's jaw clenched, his fists tightening. He forced a smile for David, but rage burned behind his eyes. Hannah's pulse raced. There was proof, real proof, that she wasn't crazy. When David left, Michael leaned so close she could smell the bitterness of his breath. "You think a video will save you? I'll handle it. And when I do, no one will believe your pathetic story." Hannah turned her head away, tears welling up. For the first time, she realized she was not just fighting for her own survival. She was fighting for the life inside her. And for little Anna, waiting at home. What Hannah didn't know was that the dashcam wasn't the only piece of evidence. And soon, more secrets would crawl out of the shadows, threatening to expose everything. The morning after the accident, the rain had cleared. But the storm inside Hannah Mitchell's life was only beginning. Lying in her hospital bed, she replayed every second of what happened. The roar of Michael's car, the cold look in his eyes, the truck that had saved her life at the very last moment. There was no doubt in her heart. Michael had tried to kill her. But proving it was another matter. When the door opened, Hannah was surprised to see Detective Ryan Collins, a tall, sharp-eyed officer known in Dallas for being relentless with the truth. He carried a small evidence bag and a notepad. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said politely, I need to ask you a few questions about last night." Before Hannah could answer, Michael appeared beside her bed, his arm possessively on the rail. "Detective, it was just an accident. The roads were wet. My wife slipped. Nothing more to it." Collins didn't look convinced. He opened the evidence bag and pulled out a small memory card. "Funny thing," he said. "This came from a dash cam. Mr. David Miller's truck was equipped with one. It recorded everything." Michael's face paled for a split second before he forced a smile. "That's good, isn't it? It'll show I was just trying to park." The detective tilted his head. "We'll see." Hannah's pulse quickened. She wanted to scream that it wasn't an accident, that Michael had aimed the car at her, but fear sealed her lips. The warning he whispered last night still echoed in her ears. "Don't you dare say a word." Collins continued, flipping through notes. "Preliminary footage shows your car reversing unusually fast, Mr. Carter. It also shows your reverse sensors were off. Care to explain?" Michael's smile twitched. "Faulty wiring. I've been meaning to get it fixed." "Convenient," Collins muttered. He looked at Hannah, his gaze gentle. "Mrs. Mitchell, did you feel unsafe?" Hannah hesitated. Michael's hand tightened around the bed rail, the pressure unspoken but clear. She swallowed hard. I don't remember clearly. Everything happened so fast." Michael exhaled, pretending relief. "See, my wife agrees it was just an accident." But Collins wasn't fooled. He closed his notepad and said, "We'll be pulling the black box from your vehicle as well. It logs speed, braking, and whether safety systems were disabled. If something doesn't add up, we'll know." Michael's jaw clenched. He tried to laugh it off, but Hannah could see the fury boiling beneath his calm mask. After the detective left, Michael leaned close, whispering venom. "You see, even with that video, they can't touch me unless you open your mouth. And if you do, Hannah, remember Anna. Think about what could happen to her." The threat hit Hannah like ice water. Her body trembled, not from pain but from fear of what this man, her own husband, was capable of. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. For now, she had to survive. For now, she had to stay quiet. But deep inside, a spark had been lit. What Michael didn't know was that the dashcam was only the beginning, and the walls he built around his lies were already starting to crumble. 2 days later, the steady rhythm of the hospital machines became a cruel reminder for Hannah Mitchell that she was trapped in a fragile body while her husband walked free. Michael visited often, bringing flowers and playing the part of a worried spouse for the nurses. But when no one was looking, his whispers carried only threats. Hannah's heart ached for little Anna at home. Was she safe? Could Michael hurt her too? Late one afternoon, as Hannah lay staring out the window, the door creaked open. It wasn't Michael this time. Instead, a warm, familiar face peeked in. Mrs. Jenkins, her elderly neighbor from the apartment complex. "Hannah, sweetheart," Mrs. Jenkins said softly, hurrying to her side. "I heard what happened. Lord have mercy, I thought I was going to lose you." Tears welled up in Hannah's eyes. It's been hard. I don't even know who to trust anymore." The older woman took her hand gently. "Then you can trust me, because I've seen things you need to know." Hannah's pulse quickened. She leaned in, desperate for the truth. Mrs. Jenkins lowered her voice. "Last week I was coming home late from the store, and I saw Michael outside in the parking lot. He wasn't alone. There was a young woman with him. Dark hair, flashy clothes. They were arguing." Hannah's breath caught. What did she say?" Mrs. Jenkins's eyes darkened. "She told him, and I swear I heard it clear as day. You need to get rid of her, Michael. I can't wait forever." Hannah's heart stopped. She felt her body go cold as the words sank in. Get rid of her. That wasn't just an affair. That was a threat. Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hand. "I didn't want to say anything until I was sure. But after what happened in that parking lot, I can't stay quiet. Hannah, he's not just cheating on you. He's planning something darker." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. She thought of Anna's laughter, of the baby still kicking inside her. How could the man she once loved turn into a monster, willing to erase her? Who was the woman? Hannah whispered, though deep inside she already knew. "I don't know her name," Mrs. Jenkins admitted, "but I've seen her before, coming and going when you weren't home. Always dressed up, always clinging to Michael like she owned him." Hannah closed her eyes. The image of Sophie Lane, the young woman from the salon down the street, flashed through her mind. She had always felt Sophie's lingering stares, the subtle smirk whenever their paths crossed. Mrs. Jenkins stroked her arm. "Listen to me, child. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. Whatever he's planning, you need to be ready." For the first time, Hannah felt a surge of both fear and determination. This wasn't just about enduring anymore. It was about survival. It was about protecting her children from a father who had chosen destruction over love. What Hannah didn't realize was that Sophie herself would soon step into her hospital room, and the confrontation would be colder than she could ever imagine. The hospital room was quiet except for the hum of machines. Hannah Mitchell lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with Mrs. Jenkins's words. "Get rid of her, Michael. I can't wait forever." That sentence echoed in her ears like a curse. She knew exactly who the woman was. Sophie Lane, the young salon worker with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. And then, as if fate itself wanted to prove her fears true, the door opened. "Hannah," a honey-sweet voice chimed. Sophie stepped into the room, holding a basket of fruit and flowers. Her heels clicked against the tile floor, her perfume filling the air. To anyone else, she looked like a kind friend visiting a patient. But Hannah's stomach tightened. "You? What are you doing here?" Hannah asked, her voice cautious. Sophie's smile widened as she placed the basket on the table. "Oh, I just wanted to check on you. Michael told me what happened. Such a terrible accident, wasn't it?" The word accident dripped with sarcasm, almost as if Sophie wanted Hannah to know she was in on the truth. Hannah forced herself to sit up, clutching her belly protectively. "You don't belong here." "Oh, come on," Sophie said, tilting her head. "I'm just being nice. After all, you and I, we're practically family now." Her laugh was soft but cutting, as though she enjoyed twisting the knife. Hannah's throat tightened. "Family? You're nothing but a mistake he chose to make." For a moment, Sophie's smile faltered, but then she leaned closer to the bed, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Listen, Hannah, you can't hold on to Michael forever. He's not happy with you. He never was. Once you're out of the picture, everything will be so much easier. For him, for me, and even for you." Hannah's eyes filled with fury. "You think erasing me will bring you happiness? You're blind. Michael doesn't love anyone but himself." Sophie shrugged, brushing imaginary dust off her sleeve. "Maybe, but at least I'll be the one standing next to him when he finally gets the life he deserves." The audacity of her words sent a shiver through Hannah's body. This woman wasn't just a fling. She was part of Michael's plan. "You'll regret this," Hannah said firmly. "I may be weak now, but I'm not going to let either of you destroy me." Sophie laughed again, stepping back toward the door. "We'll see, sweetheart. For now, just rest. You'll need your strength. Who knows what could happen next?" Her words lingered in the air like poison as she disappeared down the hallway, her heels echoing long after she was gone. Hannah sat trembling, one hand gripping her belly, the other clenched into a fist. She realized then that the danger wasn't only Michael. Sophie was just as ruthless, just as dangerous, and maybe even more willing to push her over the edge. What Hannah didn't know was that Sophie had already left something behind in that room. Something small, hidden, and dangerous enough to send Hannah's fear spiraling to new heights. 2 days later, Detective Ryan Collins returned to the hospital with a determined look on his face. He wasn't the type to waste time with small talk. His case files were tucked neatly under his arm, and his sharp eyes scanned the room the moment he stepped in. "Mrs. Mitchell?" He greeted Hannah politely. "I'll need a private word with your husband." Hannah's chest tightened. She knew Michael would twist the story again, but she also knew Detective Collins was no fool. Michael Carter straightened his tie, flashing the detective a forced grin. "Of course, officer. Let's clear this nonsense up." The two men stepped into a nearby consultation room. Hannah, left behind, pressed her ear toward the door, her heart pounding. She couldn't hear everything, but what she caught sent shivers down her spine. Collins laid a photo on the table. "Mr. Carter, this is a still frame from the dash cam. It clearly shows your vehicle accelerating in reverse toward your wife. Can you explain that?" Michael scoffed. "Accelerating? No, that's a distortion. The road was wet, the car slipped. She was standing too close to the back bumper. It was an accident." The detective leaned back, unamused. "Your car's black box doesn't agree. It shows you pressed the accelerator deliberately. And more concerning, the reverse sensor was manually turned off." Why would a safety system be disabled right before the incident? Michael's jaw tightened. He forced a laugh. You think I tried to hurt my pregnant wife? That's ridiculous. Maybe the sensor malfunctioned. Cars aren't perfect, Detective. Collins's voice dropped lower. Neither are liars. For the first time, Michael's smile slipped. Sweat beaded at his temple, but he quickly masked it with arrogance. Without proof of intent, you've got nothing. My wife will tell you herself it was just an accident. Collins narrowed his eyes. We'll see about that. He stood up, gathering his files. One last thing, Mr. Carter. Were you alone that night before the accident? Michael hesitated. Too long. Yes, of course. Collins tapped his pen against the folder. Funny, a witness claims to have seen you arguing with a woman outside your complex earlier that week. A woman who matches the description of Sophie Lane. Do you know her? Michael's eyes flickered, and for a brief moment, his confident mask cracked. She's just someone from the neighborhood. Nothing more. The detective's lips curved slightly. We'll talk to her. Michael clenched his fists under the table, his voice strained. This is harassment. I love my wife. I'd never hurt her. But Collins had already seen enough. His instincts told him the man across the table was hiding more than he admitted. Back in her hospital room, Hannah watched as Michael stormed in afterward, his face tight with suppressed rage. He leaned close, his whisper a hiss only she could hear. If you breathe one word to that detective, Hannah, I swear you'll regret it. And don't forget, Anna's still under my roof. Hannah's blood ran cold. He wasn't just threatening her anymore. He was using their daughter as leverage. What Michael didn't know was that someone else had overheard this threat, and that person was about to become the key to Hannah's survival. The hospital room grew quiet after visiting hours ended. The hallway lights dimmed, and the steady beeping of the monitor became Hannah's only companion. She lay on her side, one hand resting protectively over her belly, the other wiping silent tears from her cheeks. Michael's threats still echoed in her head. Don't forget, Anna's still under my roof. Those words cut deeper than any bruise he had ever left on her skin. Hannah had endured his fists, his yelling, his lies, but now he was holding her daughter hostage with fear. Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to run, to rip out the IV and go straight to Anna. But her body was weak, her baby still fragile. She couldn't move recklessly. For the first time, she felt trapped in a war where one wrong step could cost her everything. The tears wouldn't stop. She bit her lip to keep from sobbing out loud, terrified that a nurse might walk in and ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. But the silence was unbearable. She needed someone, anyone, to hear her. Her phone sat cracked on the bedside table. She reached for it with trembling hands, scrolling through her contacts. Most numbers were useless. Michael's friends, old coworkers, neighbors too afraid to get involved. But then her eyes landed on a name she hadn't dialed in years. Daniel Brooks. Daniel had been her classmate in high school, the boy who used to help her with math homework, the friend who once told her she deserved the world. Life had pulled them apart, but she remembered hearing he became a lawyer in Dallas. She hesitated. Would he even answer? Would he even remember her? With her heart pounding, Hannah pressed the call button. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a familiar, steady voice answered. This is Daniel Brooks. For a moment, Hannah couldn't speak. Her throat closed with emotion. Finally she whispered, Daniel, it's me. Hannah Mitchell. There was silence, then a sharp intake of breath. Hannah, my God, it's been years. Are you okay? You sound. She broke down, her words tumbling out between sobs. I'm not okay. He tried to kill me, Daniel. Michael tried to kill me, and now he's threatening Anna. I don't know what to do. The line went quiet. Then Daniel's voice turned firm, steady, like an anchor in a storm. Listen to me. You did the right thing calling me. First, breathe. You and the baby are safe for now. I'm coming to the hospital tomorrow morning. We'll figure this out. But Hannah, you need to promise me something. Don't keep this inside anymore. If you stay silent, he wins. Hannah wiped her tears. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in her chest. Someone believed her. Someone was willing to fight for her. She whispered, Thank you, Daniel. When the call ended, Hannah closed her eyes, clutching her phone like a lifeline. But her relief was short-lived. Outside in the dim hallway, a shadow lingered. Michael had returned unexpectedly. and he had overheard just enough to know she wasn't as alone as he thought. And that realization would push him to make his most dangerous move yet. A week after being discharged from the hospital, Hannah Mitchell tried to reclaim a sense of normal life. She still felt fragile, her body sore and her nerves on edge, but she refused to live in hiding. Michael's threats haunted her. Sophie's smirk replayed in her mind, yet Hannah told herself she needed strength for Anna, for the baby growing inside her. On a quiet Saturday morning, she walked into a small beauty salon down the street. Her hair had grown wild during the hospital stay, and she hoped a trim might make her feel human again. The bell above the door jingled, and the scent of hairspray filled the air. "Welcome," a cheerful voice called out. When Hannah looked up, her stomach dropped. Standing behind the counter in a sleek black dress was Sophie Lane. "Well, well," Sophie said with a slow smile. "Look who decided to pay me a visit." Hannah froze. She thought about leaving immediately, but something inside her told her to stay. Running away would only feed Sophie's power. So she lifted her chin and walked to the chair. "I just need a quick trim," Hannah said quietly, sliding into the seat. Sophie draped the cape around her shoulders, her movements graceful yet dripping with false sweetness. "Of course. You know, Michael told me you've been under a lot of stress. Poor thing. Pregnancy is hard enough without accidents happening." The words stung like acid. Hannah gripped the armrests, forcing herself not to react. Accidents don't just happen when someone disables the safety features of their car. For the briefest second, Sophie's smile cracked. Then she leaned closer, her voice a whisper meant only for Hannah. "Careful. Talking like that makes you sound paranoid. And paranoid women aren't taken seriously. Not by the police, not by judges, not even by their own friends." Hannah's heart raced, but she steadied her voice. "Better paranoid than blind. Blind to the fact that Michael doesn't love you, Sophie. He never will. He only loves what you give him. Attention, ego, and excuses." The cape tightened slightly as Sophie tugged it, her eyes narrowing. "At least I'm not pathetic enough to cling to a man who doesn't want me." Hannah turned her gaze to the mirror. Her reflection looked pale but fierce. "You're wrong. I'm not clinging anymore. I'm fighting. For my children, for my life. And when the truth comes out, Michael won't be standing next to you. He'll be dragging you down with him." For the first time, Sophie had no quick reply. She forced a laugh, snipped at Hannah's hair with unnecessary force, then said, "Enjoy your little speech. We'll see who's left standing when this is over." When Hannah paid and walked out of the salon, her knees trembled, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She had faced the woman who wanted her gone and refused to bow. What Hannah didn't see was Sophie stepping into the back room immediately after, pulling out her phone and dialing Michael. "She's not as scared as you think," Sophie hissed. "If we don't act soon, she's going to ruin everything." The next morning, Daniel Brooks arrived at Hannah Mitchell's small apartment with a briefcase in one hand and determination in his eyes. He hadn't seen her in years, yet the moment she opened the door, he recognized the same kind-hearted girl he once knew. Now bruised, weary, but stronger than ever. "Hannah," he said softly, stepping inside. "You don't have to face this alone anymore." She tried to smile, though her eyes still carried shadows. "I don't know what to do, Daniel. Every time I think about Michael, about what he might do to Anna, I feel like I can't breathe." Daniel set his briefcase on the table and pulled out a notebook. "That's why we're going to build a case. Piece by piece, brick by brick. You may feel powerless, but the law isn't on his side if we gather the right evidence." Hannah sank into a chair, rubbing her swollen belly. "What if he finds out I'm talking to you?" "He already suspects," Daniel admitted. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is protecting you and the kids. The first step is documenting everything, every threat, every bruise, every message. Do you still have your phone?" Hannah handed him the cracked device. Daniel scrolled through the texts, his jaw tightening as he read Michael's words. "Don't forget Anna's under my roof. Don't make me do something we'll all regret." "This is gold," Daniel said firmly. "It shows coercion, intimidation, and clear threats. We'll back this up with hospital records from your injuries and Dr. Howard's testimony." Hannah's eyes watered, not from sadness but from the first glimmer of hope. "You think that's enough?" "Not yet," Daniel replied. "But there's more. David Miller's dashcam footage is strong evidence. And Mrs. Jenkins' eyewitness account about Michael and Sophie arguing in the parking lot, also critical. Once we tie it all together, Michael won't just look like a careless husband. He'll look like a man with motive. Hannah took a deep breath. And Sophie, she's part of this too. She wants me gone. Daniel nodded. Exactly. If we can prove collusion, Sophie goes down with him. But we have to move carefully. Michael is already paranoid. If he senses we're building a case, he'll try to cover his tracks, or worse. Hannah shivered. Worse, like hurting Anna. Daniel reached across the table, his hand steady on hers. Then we protect her first. I'll file an emergency petition for temporary custody, citing domestic violence risk. If the court agrees, Anna stays with you. Michael won't be able to use her as leverage. Hannah's lips trembled. Daniel, if you do this, he'll come after you too. Daniel's expression hardened. Let him try. I've dealt with men like Michael before. Bullies who think fear is stronger than justice. But fear only wins if you let it. And Hannah, you've already proven you're braver than him. Her tears spilled freely now, but for once, they were mixed with relief. For the first time, someone was fighting beside her. Daniel gathered his files, preparing to leave. Stay alert, document everything, and don't let him know we're moving. He paused at the door, lowering his voice. Because Michael isn't the only one watching you closely. Across the street, hidden inside a parked car, Sophie was already taking photos of Hannah and Daniel together, fuel for the next cruel game. While Hannah Mitchell slowly rebuilt her courage with Daniel's help, across town Michael Carter was drowning. He sat alone in the dim back office of the car dealership where he worked, a pile of unpaid bills scattered across the desk. The numbers didn't lie. Credit cards maxed out, gambling debts piling higher, loan sharks calling every hour. He buried his head in his hands, sweat dripping down his temples. Just a little more time, he muttered to himself. I'll figure something out. But deep down, Michael knew time was the one thing he didn't have. The door swung open. Sophie Lane stepped inside, her heels clicking against the tile, her perfume heavy in the air. She tossed her purse onto the chair and crossed her arms. Well, did you get the money yet? Michael glared at her. Do you think it's that easy? I told you the insurance payout takes time. These things have to look natural. Sophie rolled her eyes, her patience clearly thinning. Time? I'm sick of waiting, Michael. I've already turned down better men for you. I want results. I want a life with money, with comfort, not hiding in dingy motels while your wife still breathes under the same sky. Michael stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. Don't push me, Sophie. She smirked, unfazed. Or what? You'll threaten me like you threatened Hannah? Please, I know exactly what you are, and right now you're a desperate man with no plan. The words cut deep because they were true. Michael slammed his fist on the desk. I'll get the money. Once Hannah signs the papers, the insurance is mine. All I need is for her to cooperate. Sophie leaned closer, her voice sharp as glass. Then make her cooperate. Or do you want me to find someone else who can? Michael froze. For the first time he saw the cracks in Sophie's loyalty. She wasn't tied to him by love, only by greed. If he couldn't deliver, she'd leave him without a second thought. He grabbed her wrist, his grip tight. Don't ever threaten me. But Sophie only laughed, yanking her arm free. You're weak, Michael, and weakness doesn't get results. Hannah's already talking to that lawyer friend, isn't she? I saw them together. Do you think I don't notice? She's planning something, and if you don't stop her, you'll lose everything, including me. Michael's chest tightened with rage and panic. If Hannah was building a case, if Daniel was involved, then the walls were closing in faster than he realized. Sophie grabbed her purse, heading for the door. Figure it out, Michael, because I'm not waiting forever. Either you finish this, or I'm gone. The door slammed behind her, leaving Michael alone with his spiraling thoughts. He stared at the bills on his desk, the numbers blurring into a storm of failure. His life, his control, his image, it was all slipping away. And then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. We know you're short on cash. Pay what you owe, or your family pays instead. Michael's hands shook as he read it. Loan sharks weren't bluffing. And in that instant, Michael realized he wasn't just fighting Hannah anymore. He was fighting for his own survival against enemies far more dangerous. It was nearly midnight when Hannah Mitchell sat alone in her small apartment. The lights were dim, the apartment eerily quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Anna was asleep in her bedroom, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Hannah gently stroked her belly, whispering promises to the baby inside her. She tried to convince herself they were safe now, at least for the night. Then her phone buzzed on the table. The screen showed unknown caller. Her chest tightened. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. But something inside her urged her to answer. "Hello?" Hannah's voice trembled. A low male voice spoke on the other end. "Mrs. Mitchell? You don't know me, but you need to listen carefully. Don't go near the parking lot tonight." Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "That doesn't matter," the voice said quickly. "What matters is someone paid to have the cameras there, erased. They're sending a man to tamper with the system before morning. If that happens, the only proof of what your husband did will disappear forever." Hannah's hand shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. "The cameras? Are you sure?" "As sure as I'm breathing," the man replied. "If you want justice, you better act fast, because once those files are gone, it'll be your word against his. And you know how that ends." The line went dead. Hannah sat frozen, heart racing, mind spinning. Was this a trap or a real warning? She remembered Daniel's words. Document everything, preserve every piece of evidence. If the footage vanished, Michael would walk free. Without thinking, she dialed Daniel. He answered groggily, his voice thick with sleep. "Hannah? What's wrong?" She repeated the warning, her voice breaking. "Daniel, what if it's true? What if they erase everything?" Daniel's tone sharpened instantly. "Stay put. Don't go outside. I'll call Detective Collins and have him send a team right now. If someone tries to tamper with the cameras, they'll be caught." Within the hour, unmarked police cars surrounded the parking lot of Hannah's old apartment complex. Detective Collins himself oversaw the operation, his eyes scanning every shadow. At 2 a.m., a figure in dark clothing slipped into the lot carrying a toolkit. He moved quickly, heading straight for the camera post. Collins signaled, and officers swarmed. The man tried to run, but they tackled him to the ground. When they searched his bag, they found wires, cutters, and a USB drive labeled Overwrite. Collins crouched beside him. "Who sent you?" The man refused to answer at first, but after hours in custody, he cracked. "It was Carter. Michael Carter. He wired me the money himself." The confession was written, signed, undeniable. Back at her apartment, Hannah clutched the phone as Daniel relayed the news. Relief mixed with terror. Michael wasn't just dangerous, he was desperate enough to destroy evidence, no matter the risk. She hung up, staring out the window into the dark Dallas streets. Somewhere out there, Michael was plotting his next move. What Hannah didn't realize was that Michael wasn't the only one scheming. Sophie was about to turn the game in a direction no one expected. The morning sun crept through Hannah Mitchell's blinds, but peace never reached her. She brewed a cup of tea with shaky hands, her mind still replaying the late-night warning and the arrest of the man sent to erase the cameras. Michael's desperation was spiraling, and she knew things were far from over. A knock at the door startled her. It was Daniel Brooks, carrying his laptop bag and folders. He looked more determined than ever. "Hannah," he said, stepping inside. "We have something new, and it could be the piece that finally proves Michael planned everything." Her eyes widened. "What is it?" Daniel set his laptop on the table and pulled out a USB stick. The police forensics team went through Michael's phone. He tried to wipe it clean, but they recovered a deleted image from his cloud backup. "Look." On the screen appeared a grainy photo of the apartment parking lot, the very place where Hannah nearly lost her life. The picture showed Michael's car positioned at an angle, and scribbled across the image in a digital note were the words, "Sensor off, rain cover." Hannah's breath caught. He planned it. He wasn't just careless. He studied the lot, thought it through. Daniel nodded grimly. "This isn't negligence. This is premeditation." He scoped out the scene, disabled his sensors, and waited for the right weather. "That's attempted murder." Her knees weakened, and she sank into a chair. The man she had once trusted with her heart, the father of her children, had plotted her death like a business transaction. Daniel's voice softened. "I know this is hard to see, Hannah, but it's powerful evidence. Between the dash cam, the camera tampering attempt, the text threats, and now this photo, we're building a solid wall around him." Tears welled in her eyes. "And Sophie? She's in this too. Mrs. Jenkins heard her pushing Michael to get rid of me. Doesn't that prove she's part of it? We'll get there, Daniel assured her. But right now, this photo ties Michael directly to intent. Intent is what the jury will care about. As he packed up, Hannah whispered, I just want this nightmare to end. I want my kids safe. I want my life back. Daniel gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. We're closer than ever. Hold on a little longer. After he left, Hannah sat alone, staring at the photo on the laptop. The evidence was there, clear as day, but instead of relief, a fresh wave of dread crept over her. If Michael realized the police had uncovered this, what would he do next? She closed the laptop with trembling hands, whispering a prayer under her breath. Meanwhile, across town, Michael slammed his phone against the wall in a fit of rage. He had just received a message from his lawyer confirming that the police had the photo. His face twisted with fury. Damn it, he shouted. Sophie stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching his meltdown with a sly smile. Looks like your little secret is out, she said. So what's your plan now, Michael? He turned to her, eyes burning with desperation and anger. If Hannah thinks she can win, she has no idea what's coming next. The following week, Hannah Mitchell walked into the maternity wing of Dallas General Hospital, her heart pounding as hard as the rain that once nearly ended her life. She gripped the strap of her purse tightly, every step a reminder of the pain and fear she carried. But today wasn't just about her. It was about the child inside her, the little life she refused to let Michael Carter destroy. Dr. Grace Howard greeted her with a gentle smile. Hannah, you're stronger than you realize. Let's check on your baby today. Hannah nodded, trying to hold back tears. She lay down on the examination bed, her hands trembling as she pulled up her blouse. The gel was cold on her skin, and then came the sound, steady, rapid, miraculous. Thump, thump, thump. Her baby's heartbeat filled the room, strong and clear. Dr. Howard smiled. See that? That's the sound of resilience. Your baby is holding on, just like you. Tears spilled down Hannah's cheeks. On the monitor, she saw the tiny hand move as if waving at her. For a moment, the fear, the bruises, the threats, all faded into the background. Hello, sweetheart, she whispered. It's Mama. We're going to be okay, I promise. Dr. Howard's tone grew serious. But Hannah, stress is dangerous for both of you. I want you to consider staying somewhere safe, away from Michael. Your baby deserves peace, and so do you. Hannah swallowed hard. I know, Daniel's been helping me. He thinks we can protect Anna too. But Michael, he won't let go without a fight. Dr. Howard placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then you fight smarter. Use the law. Use the truth. You don't have to face this alone. For the first time in weeks, Hannah felt a spark of strength return. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing to fight back, for Anna, for the baby, for herself. When the appointment ended, Hannah stepped out of the hospital with her ultrasound photo clutched in her hand. She stopped on the sidewalk, staring at the tiny image of her child. You're my reason, she whispered, my reason to keep going. But her brief peace shattered when she noticed a car parked across the street, a dark sedan. The same model Michael drove. Her chest tightened. Was he following her? Watching her every move? She turned quickly, hurrying toward the bus stop instead of walking home. The sedan didn't move, but the feeling of being hunted clung to her like a shadow. That night, as she tucked Anna into bed, Hannah slid the ultrasound photo under her pillow. Anna kissed her cheek sleepily and whispered, Mommy, is the baby happy? Hannah smiled through her tears. Yes, darling, the baby is strong, just like you. When Anna drifted off, Hannah sat in the dark living room, clutching the ultrasound. She wasn't going to let Michael or Sophie steal another night of peace from her children. But across town, Michael poured himself a drink, his hands shaking with rage. Sophie leaned against the counter, watching him unravel. She's not scared enough, Sophie muttered. If you want her gone, Michael, you'll have to try harder. And in that chilling moment, Michael realized he was running out of time, and his next plan would be the most dangerous yet. The apartment reeked of whiskey and anger. Michael Carter paced back and forth, his shirt wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from another sleepless night. Bills littered the table, unopened envelopes from loan sharks stacked in messy piles. His world was caving in, and he knew it. Sitting on the couch, legs crossed and phone in hand, Sophie Lane watched him with thinly veiled amusement. To her, Michael looked less like the confident man who once charmed her and more like a desperate animal trapped in his own cage. "You're spiraling," Sophie said flatly, "and desperate men make stupid mistakes." Michael whipped around, pointing at her with rage. "Don't lecture me. Everything I did, everything, was for us. Do you think I wanted to risk it all? I had no choice. Hannah was standing in my way. She always has." Sophie raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a smirk. "Funny way to show your love? Trying to run over your pregnant wife? Real romantic, Michael." His face twisted, shame mixing with fury. "She ruined me. Always nagging, always doubting. I had to scare her. I had to make her understand that she doesn't control me." Sophie leaned back, pretending to scroll through her phone. What Michael didn't notice was that she had already hit record. Every venomous word spilled from his mouth was being captured. His confession, his rage, his intent. "You're admitting it," Sophie teased. "You're saying you tried to kill her." Michael froze for half a second, then laughed bitterly. "Admitting it? To who? You think anyone would believe you? You're nothing but the mistress. No one listens to the mistress." But Sophie's eyes gleamed. She knew better. With this recording, she held the power now. If Michael went down, she could cut herself loose, claim she was manipulated, even beg for leniency. She pressed him further, her voice smooth like poison. "And the insurance money? That was the plan, wasn't it? Hannah dies, you collect, we live happily ever after?" Michael slammed his fist on the counter. "Yes, that was the plan, but everything keeps falling apart because she won't stay down." His chest heaved, his voice cracking with desperation. "I just wanted her gone, that's all. Gone." Sophie's finger hovered over the stop button on her phone. She saved the recording quietly, sliding it into her photo folder under a fake name. Her smirk widened. Michael had no idea he had just handed her the noose to hang him, or to save herself. She stood, picking up her purse. "I'm going out," she said smoothly. Michael frowned. "Where?" "Don't worry about it." Her tone was playful, but her eyes glinted with calculation. She already knew she wouldn't waste this recording right away. No, she would hold it, use it when the time was right, when she could trade it for her own freedom. Michael poured another drink, muttering curses under his breath, unaware of the daggers Sophie had just slipped into her purse. What Sophie didn't realize was that someone else would soon get their hands on that recording, and when they did, her carefully spun game would explode in her face. The cafe was warm and buzzing with soft chatter, but for Hannah Mitchell, every sound felt muted, every light too bright. She sat at a corner table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of untouched tea. Across from her sat Michael Carter, his posture stiff, his smile artificial, like a salesman rehearsing a pitch. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Hannah, let's cut the drama. I don't want to fight with you anymore. You and I, we can settle this like adults." Hannah's eyes narrowed. "Settle what, Michael? The fact that you tried to kill me? Or the fact that you're threatening our daughter?" Michael's fake smile didn't falter, but his jaw twitched. "You're being dramatic. Look, I know things got messy, but there's no reason to drag this through the courts. All that will do is ruin both of us. Think about Anna. Do you want her growing up with her parents tearing each other apart in public?" Hannah's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "You made that choice, not me." Michael slid a folded document across the table. "This is a settlement agreement. You sign it, you drop all your nonsense about attempted murder, and in exchange, I'll transfer $2 million into your account. You can walk away, raise Anna and that baby in peace, and never have to work another day." Hannah stared at the papers, her stomach twisting. $2 million, enough to give her children security for life. But the price was silence. Silence that would let Michael escape justice. She pushed the papers back. "I don't want your dirty money." Michael's voice sharpened, though he kept it low enough not to draw attention. "You need to think carefully, Hannah. Do you really believe that lawyer friend of yours can save you? The system isn't built for women like you, but money, that solves problems." Hannah leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "The only problem money solves is your greed. You can't buy me, Michael. You can't erase what you did." His mask cracked, his voice dropped to a hiss. "You'll regret this. I'm giving you a chance to walk away clean. If you keep pushing, I'll drag you down with me." Hannah refused to flinch. "I'd rather be dragged through fire than live another day under your control." For a moment, Michael's eyes burned with hatred. Then, just as quickly, he leaned back and smirked, trying to reclaim his calm. "Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you." Unbeknownst to Michael, the cafe's security cameras had captured every moment of their meeting. His threats, his attempt at bribery, his unguarded anger. When Hannah left, her legs felt weak, but her spirit burned stronger than ever. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting to show her children what courage looked like. What neither Hannah nor Michael realized was that someone else had also recorded the conversation, and that recording was about to change the game forever. The next afternoon, Daniel Brooks arrived at Hannah Mitchell's apartment with a thick file under his arm. Expression was grim, the kind of look that told Hannah he carried news she needed to hear but would hate to face. She set aside the ultrasound photo she had been staring at and opened the door. "Daniel, what is it?" He stepped inside, dropping the file on the table. "I just came from the insurance company. I subpoenaed Michael's life insurance documents, and Hannah, you need to see this." Hannah's hands trembled as she flipped open the file. The first page bore her name, Hannah Mitchell Carter, as the insured party, but her eyes froze on the next line. Primary beneficiary, Michael Carter. Her stomach churned. "He insured my life?" Daniel nodded grimly. "Yes, and not just that. There's a secondary beneficiary listed, a family member designated by the primary. That clause is unusual. It means if you died and Michael refused the payout, he could assign it to someone else." Hannah's blood ran cold. "Sophie," Daniel exhaled. "That's what I suspect. And look at this." He turned to another page. "Here's a copy of the authorization form. Supposedly you signed it, but I had it examined by a handwriting expert. The signature isn't yours. It's forged." Hannah pressed a hand over her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was written in black ink. Michael had gambled her very life like she was nothing more than a policy to cash in. Her voice broke. "He wanted me dead. Not just because of Sophie. He wanted the money. My life was worth more to him on paper than in reality." Daniel reached across the table, his voice steady. "This is the kind of evidence that buries men like Michael. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. It's all here. We'll take this to Detective Collins. The case against him is stronger than ever." Hannah gripped the papers, her knuckles white. Anger burned hotter than her fear. For years she had sacrificed, believing love meant patience, believing Michael could change. Now she saw the truth. He had never loved her. He had loved the prophet she represented. Anna padded out of her bedroom, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mommy? Why are you crying?" Hannah quickly wiped her tears and hugged her daughter tightly. "I'm not crying, sweetheart. Mommy's just strong." But inside, Hannah made a vow. She would not let Michael win. She would not let Sophie walk away with blood-stained money. Daniel closed the file. "This isn't over, Hannah, but we're close. We'll get you justice. You just need to stay safe until then." That night, Hannah lay awake with the forged documents on the nightstand. The pages stared back at her like a death warrant. She pressed the ultrasound photo over her heart, whispering, "You will not take me away from my children." Meanwhile, in a shadowy bar across town, Michael Carter slammed his glass onto the counter as Sophie leaned close, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "You better fix this, Michael," she hissed, "because if you go down, I'm not going with you." And for the first time, Michael realized Sophie might not just be his partner in crime. She might become his greatest enemy. The gray sky over Dallas matched the tension in the air as Detective Ryan Collins prepared his team in the apartment complex parking lot. Orange cones marked the exact spot where Hannah Mitchell had nearly been crushed weeks earlier. Residents peeked from balconies, curious but cautious, as officers adjusted cameras and measured distances. Hannah stood on the sidewalk with Daniel Brooks by her side, clutching Anna's small hand. She hadn't wanted to bring her daughter, but Anna refused to stay behind. At least Daniel was there to keep them steady. Michael Carter arrived with his attorney, his smugness barely hiding the nerves twitching under his skin. Sophie Lane followed a few steps behind, sunglasses masking her eyes, though the corner of her mouth curled in disdainful amusement. Detective Collins raised his voice. "We're here to reconstruct the events of the night in question. Same model car, same parking conditions, same angles. Let's see if Mr. Carter's story holds up. A silver sedan identical to Michael's was pulled into position. An officer slid behind the wheel. Hannah's stomach twisted. Just the sight of the car made her chest tighten. Collins gestured. Mr. Carter claims his vehicle slipped on wet pavement, that he couldn't stop in time. We'll test that theory. The officer reversed slowly. The sensors beeped loudly, alerting of an obstacle behind. The exact safety feature Michael had claimed was faulty. Collins looked at Michael. Works fine here. The officer reset and tried again, this time with the sensors disabled. He pressed the accelerator harder. The car lurched back quickly, stopping only when the brake was slammed. Collins nodded to the camera crew documenting the test. As we can see, disabling the sensors creates risk, and the black box data from Mr. Carter's actual vehicle showed the system was turned off minutes before the incident. That's not malfunction. That's a choice. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his attorney whispering frantically in his ear. Collins pressed further. Now, let's address speed. Black box logs showed acceleration, not a slip. Mr. Carter, would you care to explain why your car was accelerating if you were merely parking? Michael's face reddened. He cleared his throat, but the words came out shaky. I must have hit the pedal by accident. It happens. Collins stared at him coldly. Accidents don't include tampering with safety systems, Mr. Carter. From the sidelines, Sophie let out a quiet laugh. It was enough to make Michael snap his head toward her, fury blazing in his eyes. Hannah caught the exchange, and for the first time, she realized the cracks between them were widening. Collins turned to the gathered officers. We've demonstrated negligence, tampering, and intent. This was no accident. It was deliberate. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Hannah's heart raced. Finally, someone with authority was calling the truth out loud. But before relief could sink in, Michael stepped forward, pointing directly at Hannah. His voice thundered, raw with desperation. She's lying. She set me up, and I'll prove it before any jury can lock me away. What no one expected was that Sophie already held the proof that could either save Michael or destroy him forever. The tension after the parking lot reconstruction didn't fade. If anything, it grew sharper. Reporters had caught wind of the investigation, and whispers spread through Dallas about Michael Carter, the car salesman whose wife nearly died under his wheels. But the real storm was brewing in Sophie Lane's mind. She had seen Michael's temper unravel, his lies collapsing. She knew if he went down, she could be dragged with him. And Sophie Lane wasn't the type to go down for anyone. 2 nights later, she walked into the police station, her designer heels clicking against the tiled floor. She removed her sunglasses and leaned against the counter. I need to speak to Detective Ryan Collins. It's about Michael Carter. Minutes later, Sophie sat across from the detective in a small interview room. Collins studied her carefully, suspicion written all over his face. You've been very quiet up until now. Why the sudden change of heart? Sophie crossed her legs, flipping her hair over one shoulder. Because I'm not going to prison for him. Michael planned everything. The accident, the insurance, all of it. I was stupid enough to play along, but I didn't touch the wheel. Collins leaned forward. What proof do you have? Sophie smirked, pulling her phone from her purse. She tapped a file and slid it across the table. A recording. Michael confessing that he planned to kill Hannah. He even said the words, I just wanted her gone. The detective pressed play. Michael's voice filled the room, slurred with anger but chillingly clear. Yes, that was the plan. Hannah dies. I get the payout, and Sophie and I start fresh. Collins's eyes hardened. Why didn't you bring this forward earlier? Sophie shrugged. Because I thought he could handle it. But now, he's a sinking ship, and I don't plan on sinking with him. Collins sat back, considering her words. He knew Sophie wasn't confessing out of guilt, only out of self-preservation. But that didn't matter. The recording was damning. You understand this doesn't absolve you, he said. You were part of this, but cooperation could help you in court. Sophie smiled faintly. I'll take what I can get. Just make sure I don't end up in the same cell as Michael. He'd kill me before breakfast. Meanwhile, across town, Hannah sat in her apartment with Daniel, sipping tea while Anna played nearby. When Daniel's phone buzzed with a message from Collins, he read it silently, then looked at Hannah with wide eyes. What is it? She asked. Daniel exhaled. Sophie turned on him. She gave the police a recording of Michael admitting everything. For a moment, Hannah couldn't breathe. Relief and disbelief crashed together. Could this nightmare finally be ending? Could Michael finally be exposed? But Daniel's voice remained cautious. Don't celebrate yet. Sophie only saved herself. She'll twist the story to look like she was forced into it. If the jury buys her act, Michael won't be the only one walking free. Hannah's grip tightened on her cup, her heart thundering. What she didn't know was that Sophie had one more secret hidden up her sleeve, and when it came out, it could ruin Hannah's chance at justice. The morning sun barely rose before police cars surrounded the sleek suburban townhouse where Michael Carter had been hiding out. Red and blue lights reflected off the windows as neighbors gathered on their lawns, whispering and recording on their phones. The once charming salesman was about to face the consequences he had spent weeks trying to dodge. Inside, Michael jolted awake to the pounding on his door. His heart raced as he peeked through the blinds. Squad cars, uniformed officers, Detective Ryan Collins at the front with a warrant in his hand. Michael cursed under his breath, scrambling to throw on a jacket. Sophie Lane had betrayed him, and now his world was collapsing. But he wasn't going quietly. He flung the door open, raising his voice so every neighbor could hear. "This is harassment. I haven't done anything wrong." Collins's expression was stone cold. "Michael Carter, you're under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. Step outside and keep your hands where I can see them." Michael's face flushed red as officers closed in. "Attempted murder? Fraud? This is insane. I'm the victim here. My wife and her crooked lawyer are framing me." As handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Michael thrashed against the officers, his voice booming across the street. "She's lying. Hannah's been plotting against me for months. She's trying to steal my daughter, my money, my life." The crowd gasped. Phones recorded every second of his meltdown. A once respected family man reduced to a desperate, shouting criminal. Collins didn't flinch. "Save it for the judge." Michael's eyes darted around wildly, landing on the cameras. He twisted his face into a look of anguish. "Please listen to me. I loved my wife. She's the one working with that other man, Daniel Brooks. They're trying to ruin me so they can be together." The accusation cut through Hannah's heart when she later saw the footage on the evening news. Sitting in her living room, she held Anna close as the TV replayed Michael's rants. His words dripped with venom, twisting the truth until he almost sounded convincing. Hannah looked up innocently. "Mommy, why is Daddy so mad?" Hannah kissed her forehead, whispering, "Because he's scared, sweetheart. But the truth will win." Meanwhile, Sophie sat in her own apartment watching the same broadcast, sipping wine with a sly grin. She had played her part perfectly. Michael was the villain, she was the cooperative witness, and Hannah was left to defend herself against his wild accusations. Back at the police car, Michael leaned against the doorframe, still shouting as cameras flashed. "I'm innocent. She set me up. Hannah Mitchell is no victim. She's the mastermind." Collins finally shoved him into the back seat, slamming the door shut. The car pulled away, but Michael's voice still rang in the air. And though he was now behind bars, his desperate claims had planted seeds of doubt. Seeds Sophie was more than ready to water if it meant saving herself. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension. Reporters crowded the benches, their pens scratching furiously, while cameras flashed outside the double doors. At the center of it all sat Hannah Mitchell, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Beside her, Daniel Brooks shuffled through a thick binder of documents, his jaw clenched with quiet determination. Across the aisle, Michael Carter glared at her from the defendant's table, his suit wrinkled, his once proud posture sagging under the weight of handcuffs. Next to him sat Sophie Lane, her makeup flawless, her mask of confidence barely concealing the tremor in her hands. Judge Harper entered, and the room fell silent. The case that had divided the community was about to take a decisive turn. "Proceed," the judge ordered. Daniel stood, holding up a document. "Your Honor, this is the insurance authorization form submitted by Michael Carter, supposedly signed by my client, Mrs. Hannah Mitchell. But handwriting experts have confirmed this signature is forged." He handed the report to the bailiff, who delivered it to the bench. The judge's eyes scanned the paper, her expression tightening. Daniel continued, his voice steady and sharp. The forgery was no amateur job. It was carefully crafted, intended to trick both the insurance company and the law. But analysis proves conclusively, Hannah Mitchell never signed this. She never agreed to make her husband the beneficiary of her death. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Michael slammed his fist on the table. Lies. All of it. She signed it. She just doesn't remember. She's trying to frame me. The judge shot him a warning glare. Mr. Carter, outbursts will not be tolerated. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between Michael and the judge. Daniel pressed on, flipping to the next page. Furthermore, digital metadata shows this form was submitted from Sophie Lane's laptop. Not Hannah's, not Michael's office computer. Sophie's. Gasps filled the room. Sophie's mask cracked for the first time, her lips parting in shock. She whispered fiercely to Michael, "You told me no one could trace it?" Michael's face twisted in rage. "You were supposed to cover your tracks." The judge banged her gavel. "Order in the court." Hannah sat frozen, her heart pounding. Every word peeled back the layers of betrayal she had endured. At last, the truth was surfacing. Daniel's voice softened as he concluded. "Your Honor, this forgery was not only a crime of fraud, it was a death sentence written for Hannah Mitchell, a plot to profit from her life by ending it, and the evidence proves both defendants were complicit." The judge studied the documents, her eyes narrowing. "This evidence will be entered into the record. A jury will hear it in full." Hannah exhaled shakily, tears pooling in her eyes. For the first time, she felt the weight of justice tipping toward her. But Michael leaned close to Sophie, his voice a venomous whisper that still carried across the courtroom. "If I go down for this, I'm taking you with me." Sophie stiffened, her hands trembling as she realized her deal with the police might not protect her after all. And in that moment, Sophie knew she had only one option left, to betray Michael completely, before he destroyed her too. The courtroom was heavy with silence as the judge called the next witness. David Miller, the truck driver whose quick reflexes had saved Hannah Mitchell's life, walked steadily to the stand. He wasn't a polished lawyer or a smooth-talking businessman. He was a working man, his hands calloused, his voice rough from years behind the wheel. But what he carried was far more powerful than polish. He carried the truth. "Mr. Miller," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court what you witnessed on the night of the incident." David cleared his throat. "It was raining hard. Visibility wasn't great, but my dash cam catches more than my eyes sometimes. I pulled into the parking lot and saw Michael Carter's car already moving in reverse. But something felt off. It wasn't the way a person normally parks." The prosecutor nodded. "What do you mean by that?" David leaned forward, his voice firm. He wasn't easing into the space. He was accelerating, fast, and he wasn't stopping. Hannah was behind that car. She fell, tried to get up, but the car kept coming. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Hannah sat frozen, her hand over her mouth, reliving every terrifying second. "And what did you do?" the prosecutor pressed. David's jaw tightened. "I laid on the horn, slammed my brakes, and swerved. My truck clipped the side of his car, forced him to stop. If I hadn't been there, if I'd been a second slower, she and that unborn baby wouldn't be here today." The jurors shifted in their seats, some shaking their heads, others staring at Michael with disgust. The prosecutor held up a small device. "Mr. Miller, is this the dash cam you submitted to the police?" "Yes, sir." The footage played on the courtroom screen. The grainy video showed headlights glaring through sheets of rain, Michael's car reversing unnaturally fast, Hannah's figure stumbling backward, and the final impact of David's truck stopping the disaster. The sound of Hannah's cry echoed faintly through the audio. When the lights came back up, the room was deathly still. The prosecutor turned toward the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this was not an accident. This was an attempted murder, witnessed, recorded, undeniable." Michael jumped to his feet, his voice breaking. "Lies. All of it. He's exaggerating. The rain made it look worse." But the judge slammed her gavel. "Mr. Carter, sit down." David looked directly at Michael, his voice unwavering. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You weren't losing control. You were trying to take control in the worst way." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. For weeks, she had carried the weight of doubt, the fear that no one would believe her. Now, someone had spoken the truth she had been too afraid to say out loud. The prosecutor smiled faintly. "No further questions." As David stepped down, Hannah whispered a silent thank you, her heart pounding with gratitude. But Michael leaned toward Sophie, his voice a venomous hiss. He thinks he's buried me? Watch. I've still got cards to play. And what Michael was about to unleash in the courtroom would be his most desperate gamble yet, a gamble that could destroy them all. The trial had reached its most intense point when life interrupted in the most powerful way. Hannah Mitchell, already 8 months along, sat in the courtroom clutching her belly. Each contraction came sharper than the last, and though she tried to hide it, sweat glistened on her forehead. Daniel Brooks leaned close, concern etched on his face. "Hannah, you need to go to the hospital, now." She shook her head stubbornly. "I can't leave. What if they decide today?" But another wave of pain doubled her over. The judge noticed immediately. "Mrs. Mitchell, court is adjourned. Bailiff, call an ambulance." Within minutes, Hannah was rushed to Dallas General Hospital. Reporters swarmed outside as news spread like wildfire. The pregnant wife at the center of the attempted murder case was going into labor. Inside the delivery room, Dr. Grace Howard took charge, her voice calm but commanding. "Breathe, Hannah. Focus on me. You've fought too hard to give up now. You're bringing new life into this world." Tears streamed down Hannah's cheeks as she gripped the sheets. Memories of Michael's threats, Sophie's smirks, and the courtroom battles all flashed through her mind. But so did the ultrasound photo, the sound of her baby's heartbeat, and Anna's sweet question, "Is the baby happy?" Hours passed in a blur of pain and determination until at last a cry filled the room. Dr. Howard lifted a tiny, wriggling newborn and placed him in Hannah's arms. "It's a boy," the doctor whispered. "Strong and healthy." Hannah sobbed, kissing her son's forehead. "Welcome to the world, sweetheart. You're my miracle." Outside, Daniel waited anxiously with Anna. When the nurse finally wheeled Hannah out holding the baby, Anna's eyes lit up. "Mommy? Is that my brother?" Hannah smiled through her exhaustion. "Yes, darling. Meet your little brother." Anna leaned over, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "Hi, baby. Don't worry. I'll help Mommy take care of you." It was the moment Hannah had dreamed of through every nightmare, a family whole again, filled with hope instead of fear. But while Hannah basked in the joy of new life, the courthouse buzzed with its own storm. Word of the forged documents, Sophie's recording, and David's testimony had spread. Public opinion was shifting fast, turning Michael from a successful salesman into a cold-blooded conspirator. Still, Michael sat in his cell, seething. When a guard delivered the news that Hannah had given birth, he slammed his fists against the wall. "She thinks this makes her stronger? She's nothing without me. Nothing." Meanwhile, Sophie's mask of confidence slipped further. Reporters began digging into her finances, her connection to the insurance firms, and her role in Michael's plot. For the first time, she realized her carefully planned betrayal might not be enough to save her. Back at the hospital, Hannah whispered to her newborn, "You came at the perfect time. You're proof that love can survive even the darkest storms." What Hannah didn't know was that Michael, cornered and desperate, was planning one final move. A reckless act that could end everything once and for all. 2 weeks after giving birth, Hannah Mitchell returned to the courthouse, her newborn son cradled in her arms and little Anna walking proudly beside her. The world's eyes were on her. Reporters lined the steps, flashing cameras captured every moment. But Hannah didn't bow her head in fear this time. She walked with quiet strength, ready to see justice served. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Michael Carter sat at the defendant's table, his once sharp suit wrinkled, his face drawn and hollow. His arrogance was gone, replaced with bitterness and desperation. Beside him, Sophie Lane sat pale and rigid, no longer a glamorous mistress but an accomplice awaiting judgment. Judge Harper entered, and silence fell. The jury filed in, their expressions grave. The foreman stood, holding the slip of paper that would decide everything. "On the charge of attempted murder," he read aloud, "we find the defendant, Michael Carter, guilty." A gasp swept through the room. Michael's face twisted, his lips curling into a snarl. "On the charge of insurance fraud, guilty." Michael slammed his fists on the table, shouting, "Lies, all lies." Bailiffs restrained him, forcing him back into his chair. The foreman continued, his voice steady. "On the charge of conspiracy, guilty." The judge nodded firmly. "Michael Carter, You are hereby sentenced to 30 years in state prison without the possibility of parole." Michael's scream echoed through the courtroom. "You can't do this to me. I built everything. She was nothing without me." But his words fell on deaf ears. Next came Sophie. The jury found her guilty of aiding and abetting fraud, though her cooperation with investigators spared her from the same fate as Michael. She was sentenced to 5 years. Her once defiant smirk crumbled into tears as she was led away, realizing Michael had dragged her down after all. Hannah sat frozen, tears streaming silently down her face, not from fear, but from relief. For the first time in years, she could breathe. She clutched her baby close, whispering, "We're free." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, microphones thrust toward her. "Hannah, how do you feel now that justice has been served?" She looked at Anna, then at her newborn son, her voice steady and strong. "I feel hope. No woman should ever suffer in silence. No child should live in fear. We survived because I chose to stand up, and because good people believed me. That's what saved us." The cameras flashed, capturing not a victim, but a survivor. Weeks later, Hannah moved into a new home, a quiet suburban house filled with sunlight. Daniel often visited, helping her settle into a new life. Anna giggled in the yard while Hannah rocked her baby gently on the porch. For the first time in years, peace filled her heart. Michael sat alone in a prison cell, his empire gone, his reputation shattered. Sophie, locked away in her own cell, cried over the silence of friends who had abandoned her. And Hannah? She finally smiled again, not just for herself, but for her children. Because despite the darkness, she had proven that truth, courage, and love were stronger than any betrayal, and her new life was just beginning. So that's it, my dear friends. The story of Hannah has come to an end, but if you are still here with me right now, it means something in her journey touched your heart in a personal way. And maybe, just maybe, it reminded you of this. No matter how dark life becomes, there is always a way forward. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Hannah could not control Michael's cruelty, but she chose courage, love, and truth. And that choice changed everything. And that's the message I want you to carry into your own life. Strength is not about never falling. It's about rising every time you do. If this story spoke to you, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe so more people can hear it too. Because sometimes the right story at the right time can heal more than we imagine.